Welcome to the introduction for graded assignment number 1 in the Java curriculum. If you come down here past all the chapters, you will find this assignment section. And then you can see right here, assignment number 1, TechJobs console is the one we want. So click on that. It gives you a little bit of an introduction. It tells you, essentially that you're going to be writing this little program to run in the console that is going to help the company team at LaunchCode find job listings with their employer partners that can be matched with graduates of LaunchCode for apprenticeships. And they're going to, give you the data, and you'll, a lot of the code is already written. And then you'll go through and use some of these things you've learned, Java syntax, array lists and hash maps, the scanner class, to put together, finish the program and make it work the way it's intended to work. So take some time to read through this so that you really understand everything, how to get started, making sure that they refer to setup instructions here in assignment 0, which is right here, in case you are having a little trouble with your setup. So read through that. And then the next thing to do is review the starter code. Now, you may be tempted to jump to task number 1. Don't do that. You really need to do this because your first goal for this assignment is to understand the existing code. That's a massive skill that's really, really important. When somebody else has already written a lot of code and you're coming in and you're supposed to contribute to it, you have to understand how it works. So they're going to walk you through looking at each of the files here. There's this, jobs data.csv. So like if you come in here and look at the source folder and the main folder, you can see there's the Java folder that holds the 2 classes. And then there's this resources folder that holds jobdata.csv. So they, talk about, how this file works, ask you some questions to think about to make sure you understand what you're looking at. And then they talk about the TechJobs class, and that one is here. And this one is the one that actually runs the program. It has the main method that has code that gets executed. So you definitely want to take some time reading through this explanation of what you're looking at and the code itself. Really study this code, make sure you understand what's happening where. And then they talk specifically about a couple of methods here. The get user selection method is down here below main. And this has a number of things they've already written for you that will help run the program so that you can ask the user to make a selection and then validate their input. So read through that, and then take a look at the job data class. The only other thing that's here is this print jobs method here. We'll look at that in a minute when we talk about task number 1. So if we switch over to the job data class, you can see that this one has a number of different methods in it. It's got, the data file, the path to that CSV file is defined here. This Boolean is data loaded, set to false to begin with. And then this array list all jobs that has been declared but not initialized. And all the way down here at the bottom is where the load data method is that checks to see if it's already been done or not before actually doing it. And they, they discuss kind of what this is and how how it works, but you need to kind of look through and make sure that you have a good understanding of this, even though a lot of these things are things we haven't introduced. If you kind of look through it, you should be able to see the sequence of events and understand what's happening here. And then this method gets called in a lot of different places because there's all these other methods that are different ways to search the data and return only the jobs that match using different criteria. They talk about all of that here. And there's some really good information, some good questions to ask to make sure you understand the difference between these different methods. So take some time to read through all of this. You really don't want to get started trying to write code until you are certain that you understand all of this. Now, if right now you're looking at all of this code and you're just super overwhelmed, or maybe a little bit of panic is even setting in, I'm here to tell you that those feelings are perfectly normal. This stuff is new to you guys. Working with this much existing code is somewhat new to you guys. So it's okay to feel a little bit overwhelmed right now, but that is exactly why they give you this entire section that explains a lot of it to you and gives you an opportunity to really look at it bit by bit and understand what's happening. So take advantage of this to make sure you understand before you move on. Then when you're ready to actually start coding, you can go to task 1. So this one is this print jobs, that right now just prints this message. It's not implemented yet. So if you go back over to TechJobs and look at the bottom, you can see where that's printed to the console. So you need to replace this with exactly what they show you here. Basically, one of two things is going to happen. Either there are going to be jobs that are going to be present in this parameter some jobs. And if there are, you need to display them like this. If there are no jobs, then you need to display this instead, this no results. And it needs to look just like this, meaning you need to make sure there's no spaces, extra lines between here, things like that. The unit tests are going to fail if some of those things are not true. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a little bit because there's a couple of things that you might get hung up on. A lot of people do, and so I'll talk about that in just a minute. But this is what you're going for. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is this find. Yeah, you're creating the method find by value. Actually, it already exists. You just have to fill it out. So if you go over to job data and you come down here to find by value, you'll see that there's a to do here. Implement this method. Now, this part needs to stay, load data. They tell you that here. Make sure that you leave that here. But down here, you want to return some jobs, not null. And so you need to actually figure out, how do I go through all of the columns so that I can search for, use some sort of search term and actually check all of the columns, not just one column, because they have other methods here that are similar that allow you to specify a column. But what if you wanted to actually check all columns for a search term? That's what you want to write here. So you can make use of some of this, but you're going to need to do a couple of other things as well. And they explain that here. Just, you want to make sure that you don't have duplicates. You want to make sure that, your column names are not hard-coded. You want to make it possible to where if another column was added later, your code would still work. You don't want to call this other method as though it's a helper method. You want to actually just write your own code that's going to, go through all of the data and process it. But definitely look at that one, because like I said, there are things from here that you can borrow from once you kind of get everything else set up. And it says down here, you'll need to call find by value from somewhere in main. I actually found that when I looked over in main for that, it has already been done for you. Let's see. Yeah, find by value right here. So I guess they wrote those instructions, but then they decided to put it in the starter code after all, because it's right here. So don't worry too much about that. Once you actually code it, when you run the program, it should automatically work because it's already been called. All right, so once you have all of that working and you're actually getting your job, stuff back, and it looks, your job listings come back looking like this whenever you do your different searches, that's when you want to go and, do task 3. So this makes sure that your searches are case insensitive. So if you put in all lowercase JavaScript, even if the data has, capital J, capital S, or capital J, lowercase s, it won't matter. Read these questions, think about what you might want to do to make that happen. And because you have 2 different ways to search, you need to think about the fact that you've got possibly 2 different spots where you need to handle it. The submission and bonus missions, this is where you want to make sure that your all 3 of those goals, corresponding to those tasks work, and you want to run the autograder test to make sure the tests pass. So right now, if I was to do that, even without having written the code, I could come over here to test and into Java, and I see this TechJobs test. I can right click on that and say run TechJobs test right down here. And it'll go ahead and run those. And it says, all 4 failed. Well, of course they failed. I haven't coded anything yet. But if you click on each one here, you can see exactly what happened. And if you scroll down until you see this click to see difference, this is a pretty cool feature. You can click on that and it brings it up and actually shows you the diff. So you can say, okay, it was expecting, it says right here, it was expecting to see this when it ran this test. And instead it saw print jobs is not implemented yet. So you can see exactly what it's supposed to look like and then compare it to what your code is actually putting out and see what the differences are. And that'll help you fix what you need to fix to pass each of these tests. So make use of that. This is a tool. It's a really great tool. And that's how you'll be able to make sure it's all correct. Okay. As far as what, watching a demo of a working solution, I normally do that for you in these intro videos, but they actually did it. They have one right here for you. So if you want to know how it works, go ahead and just run this video and they'll demonstrate for you different ways to do it and test it. And then of course there's submission instructions here. If you want to do the bonus missions, these are really helpful things to do. One thing would be if you're running it and you're asking for a list of all the employers or a list of all the position types, it would be really awesome if they're sorted alphabetically. So you can figure out how to do that. Remember that the array list class does not have a sort method, but there is another class that does, that allows you to sort an array list. And I covered that in my lecture. So if you remember that, you can also Google it. And then the second one, it talks about find all here that, let's see, let me find the right one. I got to go back over to job data and I'm going to close this. Hang on. All right. So if we go up here to find all with no parameter, not the one that has the field, but this one, you'll notice that they're just returning all jobs directly. So what they're basically saying here is you don't really want to return, you want to preserve this and keep it behind the scenes, and you really only want to return a copy of the data. So this is an array list of hash maps, right? That's what the return value is here. So the key here is thinking not only how do you copy an array list so that it's different and it doesn't just point back to all jobs in memory, but if you want to make a deep copy, that also means making copies of the hash maps that are stored in this list. So you can do a little research and think about how you might go about doing that. And it's a good challenge. But when you're all done, you can follow your submission instructions here, notify your TA to set up a demo time, and then you should be in good shape. So there were a couple things that I wanted to mention that were some of the gotchas. One is that we were looking at this diff before. You'll notice how there's a space before these asterisks here, and there's only one space here, not two spaces. In order to make that happen, you're going to have to choose which system out print method you use. Now, so far, we have demonstrated print line, right? Print ln as being the method you want to use. There are other ones out there that will work, and they give you different results. So you may want to think about that. The other place where that tends to come up is in the no results version. Let's see. Yeah, when this comes up with no results, you may find that you end up having an extra new line here. So you might want to change how it is you're printing this, so that there's no new line between here and here, because this test will fail if that's the case. All right, I think that's it. I don't have a ton of major explaining to do because they really have done a good job of walking you through this bit by bit, and it's going to take time. So make sure you set aside plenty of time to work on this so that you can study the code, get to know it, make sure you understand how it works, and then work on each of these tasks one by one. And reach out to TAs in office hours whenever you get truly stuck, so that they can take a look at your code and help you through it. All right, I hope this has been helpful. I will see you next time.